Okay, so this is all about the SCARLET Plus project, but we actually started a couple of years ago on what was called the SCARLET project, and that stood for Special Collections Using Augmented Reality to Enhance Learning and Teaching. And although it's an acronym, it really does say what we did in the year project. It was at the University of Manchester, and it was working with a couple of really enthusiastic academics. And one of the key things about the project was we had a really good team working on it. So we had learning technologists, project managers, librarians, people who knew about the special collections, and the academics. And the premise of the project was that students often consult rare books, manuscripts and archives, but within isolated study rooms. So they're disconnected from all the other collections and supplemented materials that exist around that piece of material. So we used AR to bring that to life, and we got some fantastic feedback. I think one of the main things we found from that was that it was the students that first were looking into these manuscripts or books that really found it useful to have this supplementary material. So I've got a couple of quotes there that you can have a read from people who worked on the project. It was a fantastic project, and as I said, it was a real team approach, and it really looked into how AR can be used and some of the things it can't be used for as well. And I'll keep going on about this, but we've blogged throughout these projects. So if you want to know more about the lessons learned, then go and have a look at our blog, and we'll have the link to that at the end. Matt, can you move me on a slide, please? Thank you. So moving forward, SCARLET was just funded, and they were nice enough to give us extension funding to embed what we'd learned, the skills and the knowledge, across the community. So we started work with the University of Sussex and the University of Creative Arts, their Crafts and Study Centre, embedding what we'd learnt into their institutions. So we did things like replicating the team approach, making sure that we had the same sorts of people involved in each project. Matt, next slide, please. Thank you. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to hand over to Rose Locke from the University of Sussex, and after that, Jean Vasher from the Craft Study Centre at University of Creative Arts. First of all, Rose is going to do a presentation, and then we're going to show, or attempt to show, a very short video walkthrough of the AR app that she's developed. Now, please bear with us. If for any reason the video won't work for you, what I suggest you do is close down Wimber and open it up again, and just bear with us for the videos are only 2 or 3 minutes long, and the slides should reappear again. We did have a problem with that earlier, but we are going to attempt to do it because we think it'd be nice for you to see the AR app being used. So after Rose has done her presentation and then a short video, we'll go straight on to Jean, who'll do the same thing, presentation, then a video, and then at the end we'll attempt to answer your questions that have come up. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to Rose, and if Matt, you could bring up Rose's slides, please.
Hello, my name's Rose Locke. My normal job is Senior Archive Assistant at University of Sussex Special Collections, but that is actually a job share, so I have half a week spare. So what I've been doing with that since August is actually project coordinating the SCARLET Plus side of the University of Sussex side of SCARLET Plus. Basically, I think the good thing about me being involved in this is I've never done anything even remotely like this before. I'm not a learning technologist. I'm not I'm computer literate, but I've never done any coding, anything like that before. So this really was a very fresh thing to take on. And I think the fact that I can do it really highlights the fact that the MEMIS approach is so, it takes your hand, it leads you through. It's really, really good. It gives you the tools to actually create things, which we have. So we got involved because we'd just created, we're creating an open educational resource with a lot of our mass observation project material. We were concentrating on the 80s. It's called Observing the 80s. It's a wonderful thing. It is open, so it's all free. So if any of you want to go and have a look at it, it's glorious. That uses mass observation project questionnaire answers about how people feel about the 80s, talking at the time. There's also lots of lovely ephemera on there, and the British Library have been kind enough to come in with us and to provide some audios. So it's a very good resource. But what we thought was, we've got a lot of digital material, got a chance to do augmented reality. This is a very good fit. We can use the digital material we've already got. We can just pop it into an augmented reality, get it all sorted, just have a different approach to provide the same information. Now, I think what memes have taught us is that that was a very wrong way to go about things. Augmented reality is a very different thing. It's not a way to provide acres and acres of information, which is what we intended to do first of all. And the way that we were taught this wasn't good, really, was our first workshop. Laura and Matt and Guida Armstrong, Dr. Guida Armstrong from Manchester, all came down, presented to us what they'd been doing, explained what augmented reality was, and we were very lucky to be joined by people across the university. I cannot highlight enough how important it is to get people from different disciplines in through your institution. I think if we hadn't had the learning technologists, the e-learning specialists, the academics, the project coordinators from other projects, we really wouldn't have got anything as good as we had. So a lot of us from Special Collections and these people from across the university very quickly saw that augmented reality is a different thing. It's far more flexible and it gives far more than just lists of things and lists of links. This has been one of our big conversation points. Why is it different from a website? Why is it different from a handout? And we spent a great deal of time talking about that and trying to work out why it is. I haven't done very big slides because it's a very visual thing in itself, and so we'll let it speak for itself. But if anyone does want to have a play, what you've got up there at the moment is the QR code. If you scan that, whether you're in Genio or not, if you're not in Genio, if you scan it, it'll load that up. If you are in Genio, it'll bring up the channel. Then the next slide, which we'll bring up in a bit, you can have a play because you've got the trigger in the image in there. That's lovely. Sorry, Matt, could you just knit back just in case anyone would like to have a thank you? That's lovely.
You've got a
marvellous
on your phone. I didn't bring my phone with me today.
Hello, I can hear someone talking there. Okay, you've gone. Marvellous. Brilliant. Okay, so we had all these people in the same room. So what we thought was we had our project talking about the 80s with these people talking about the 80s, and what we thought would be a lovely thing to do was to be able to, on the side of the observing the 80s, them talking about how they thought about the 80s, talking about also being part of this project. So what we've ended up with our augmented reality is something which gives you opinions of the people writing, the opinions of people involved in the archive itself, so one of our members of staff, and also a student who's been working on it for a very, very long time. She started off, I think, when she was an undergraduate. She did some research and she's carried on through her postgraduate work using it as well. So as opposed to giving what we had already, giving something extra in a different way. I think that is what our lead academic, who's Dr. Lucy Robinson, who's been amazing through this whole thing. Her enthusiasm has really taken us through. I think that's what got her excited about the whole thing. The fact it is very, very different, and it allows students a way of looking at things which is different. She's talking a lot about pedagogic approaches and liminal spaces and all of this stuff, which I, to be honest, don't entirely understand. But it's something she's getting very excited in as an other thing. A space which is an other space which you can use to actually teach things you can't teach in different ways. So that was our first augmented reality resource. It's out there, it's being used, apparently it's getting good feedback, so that's delightful. That's what makes me very, very happy. But of course the whole point of the project wasn't to make an augmented reality resource. The point of the project was for us to be able to create augmented reality resources. And we can now. I started training our math observation project officer and our education officer as well, how to make their own. I think Matt's step-by-step approach of training us, really taking the coding, taking the complicated computery bits, which again, were completely new to me, taking them down step by step, showing us what works, what doesn't, how to do things, really, really works. I don't think I could have done this on paper. I don't think I could have done this through videos. But having someone sat beside you who actually knows how to do it, that's what made the difference for me. Speaking personally, I can't really recommend them enough. There's no way we could have done this by ourselves. You need a helping hand with something that's so new. Because although there is a lot of talk about augmented reality out there, there's very little in higher education. Very few people are doing things with students, especially postgraduate students. It's not something that's very common. And also because it's such a fast-moving technology, help guides and how-to guides are very few and far between. I created one for what we've been up to, and I put that on the blog as well. So if that helps anyone at all, along with the toolkit, that's lovely. But yes, as I said, there's really nothing as good as actually being next to someone. So we've got our knowledge now. It's in there. We're able to take that where we want. So the other thing that Mimas were very, very keen on was us having a second finishing off workshop, as it was. We'd had the training, we'd had the support, we'd created the actual augmented reality application we were going to create, and the debrief was a very, very big thing. We got all the people who'd come from Sussex to the first workshop back, sat about, showed them what we'd created, and more or less posed the question, what now? Who do you think would be interested? What would you like to do with this? And it was a very useful thing for us in that it really created links throughout the university for us. They gave us names of people who they'd talk to about this, who would be interested, people who they thought we should get in contact with. Very, very useful just to do that. And also they came up with ideas that, of course, we never would have. Gobbit exercises. Again, I don't really understand what they are, but it's all to do with teaching students how to do things. Talking about the space in which academia exists. So that's one of the places where we've gone. Could we pop onto the next slide, just in case anyone wants to have a look at the... Thank you, Matt. That's lovely. So that's where we are at the moment, really. We've got our AR. We're working through it. It's going very, very well. And we're starting to get it out there. I think in the future what it's going to be most useful for us personally, is taking out to school groups and community groups, places where you can't take archives. That's a very big thing. Also working with academics to see what they want to develop with our things. Because of course... Oh, sorry, that's lovely. Sorry, Laura was giving me a message and I got a little bit distracted. So yes, working with a teacher or lecturer who actually is going to use it, we found very, very important because they really, really do need that buy-in. Lovely. That's me about done. So would you like to play the video, Matt? And if anyone has...
Okay. Hopefully you would have all watched the video now. If you haven't, they're all on our WordPress blog, and Matt's put the link there too. Matt, could you just bring up Rose's slide and last slide? And I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to raise a couple of the questions that are prominent to Rose's presentations, and then we'll move on to Jean. Okay, so a couple of questions for Rose then. So the first one was about Genio and Android.
Genio does work on Android, but not all Android devices, unfortunately. Some of the older ones, I've been trying to create a list, but I don't have it with me, unfortunately. They're just too old to use it, unfortunately. It's the wonderful world of technology always going forward. but most will work.
Okay, next question, which I think we've all had a lot, so there's lots of answers to this, is about could you do the same thing without AR, basically?
It's a very interesting question, and it's one that various people involved in our project are still not convinced about. It's a very interesting thing that you can use augmented reality as a way of providing links, of providing things. It's a very valid use of it. But yes, there is the question, is it augmented reality if you're doing that with it? However, I think the really important thing here is to show what can be done with it and then hand over to the people who are actually using it. My role in all of this is very much as a facilitator, someone who's providing a technology which then can be used in a myriad of different ways to actually project. One of the things that our academic, Lucy Robinson, is very keen on is actually getting the students to create their own augmented reality, whether that be them actually doing it or coming up with the ideas and then someone else doing that, but using that to show them how to do things. Also, the location-based is a very interesting thing. That can be used to place various different things into the locations in which they did exist, might exist, could exist, should exist, who knows. That really does put things into a different space and allow you to start thinking about things in a different way, and that's something else we're looking at here. But certainly it's not a question that is answered. For kids, there's so much going on in schools, it's brilliant. It's really all about engagement and kind of bringing them something that they understand and can use. Further education, very, very much about training exercises. There's been some brilliant work on how to provide training videos and training diagrams. Absolutely amazing. But higher education, we're still working on that, and that's hopefully what you'll all be able to start thinking about and get sorted for us.
I'd really recommend going onto the blog and watching the videos by Lucy Robinson and the ones by Guider Armstrong. They sort of answer this question as well. It's also worth looking at all the different examples of AR that we've developed through SCARLET and SCARLET Plus, and there are some that properly augment the reality, and there's other ones that just provide that contextual information around the object at the point of use. I think for me, it's all about this early stage of experimenting and giving people like University of Sussex and Creative Arts the skills so they can start experimenting as well. And I do hope that in a couple of years' time, we'll be much clearer about how augmented reality really can work. I think to get to that point, to be producing fantastic augmented reality apps that are really benefiting the student, we have to do all this sort of experimental work at the moment and ask these sorts of questions. So I thought that one might come up, and thank you. And by the way, I'm going to say at the end that we've got an AR discuss list, so this would be exactly the sort of question it'd be great to get everyone talking about on there. Just trying to see if there's any more questions that have come up. I think many people have been discussing this question, which is great.
It is a big
So, right, what I'd like to do now is to hand over to Jean. So, Matt, if you could bring up Jean's slides. Jean, if you could lock your talk on, and we shall turn ours off. And hopefully in a minute or so, we should hear from Jean.
Oh, hello. Hi, I'm Jean Basher. I'm curator of the Craft Study Centre collections. And I'm going to give you, I'm just going to check my slides working. Matt, I think you'll need to go forward for me to the next slide. Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm going to give you an overview of the Craft Study Centre collections, its history, and what the CSC is doing today, because that gives you an idea of the context for AR and how we can actually use it to enhance learning and teaching in the University of the Creative Arts, as well as the visitors who come to the museum, and how to embed it within the practices here, because until Laura approached me from Mimas I hadn't heard of AR at all, so it was completely new to me. And when she said, oh, developing one application would be sufficient, I thought, wow, this isn't going to take long. But it's so cutting edge that it's been really interesting experience for us to embrace it. It's also very much a developmental thing. It wasn't important about the actual outcome of one AR application, but actually the processes and the learning experiences and the things that didn't always go right on the project and the things that did go right. And my role has been in content developer, so very much liaising with people in the University for the Creative Arts, and as Rose said, building a team, raising people's awareness of what is HR, what is AR, and showing them examples of it. Marie Therese, our learning technologist, has led on the technological side, and that is way above me. So I'm just going to move on to give you an insight into the Craft Study Centre. So next slide, please. Okay, we're a collection of 20th century and contemporary crafts. It was founded as a trust in 1970, originally opened as a museum in Bath in 1977. It's always been a university collection, so it's also had a very strong research remit, and funders want us to make collections available to students, to researchers with strong research outcomes. They want it to be a handling type collection. In our collection we have wooden furniture, textiles, printed in work, calligraphy, and archives to support that. The collection is strongest in the period 1920 to 1970. We also have a large collection of sub-collections, makers' reference collections. So, for example, Bernard Leach collected ceramics from the Far East, and some of those date back several hundred years. So that's just to give you a flavour of what we were wanting to apply AR to. Next slide, please, Matt. This is the Craft Study Centre now. We moved into the building in 2004. The collection actually moved from Bath, where it relocated, to the Surrey Institute of Art University College. And between 2000 and 2003, we digitised the collection whilst the build was happening. And we were funded by GISC to create 4,000 images. So they online and actually form part of the resource for the AR application as well. Next slide, please. So this is the target audience for AR. Our remit was to embed it within UCA. So we worked with a lead academic who was really good. We wanted to identify how we could actually enrich the student experience by using both for undergraduate, MA and PhD students. And also, we hope that AR will actually lead to extending it to external audience as well, because the collection is used for doctoral and postdoctoral research students. It's used for personal research. It's used by specialist subject groups. It's used across genres. So there's a great interconnectivity between them. So if, I'm going to show you in a moment some of the objects in the collection. We'll build an AR application on that. So if you whiz through that, please. For example, our Michael Cardew collection, who was a leading 20th century potter, have been used by a PhD researcher. They've been used for postdoctoral research purposes. It has formed the basis for Tanya Harris' book on Michael Cardew, and she's a well-known craft writer. My private collectors from all over the world. We have a regular visiting researcher from the USA. Next one, please. This is an image of Michael Cardew, just to show you that we have the archive there. Next one, please. and his archive. Next one. And an image of a Q5 card use. So ideas were that you could build an application using all those kind of resources. Next one. So coming back to the SCARLET project, having given you a sort of background to the collections, it's funded by NUS, Nationally Designated Centre for Higher Education, based at the University of Manchester. We were funded for £8,000, and we were partnered with Sussex and their project, and the bid was very fortunately written for us. Next one. So our institutional goals were to embed augmented reality within UCA teaching and learning. And this was something really new for me, which I really enjoyed, because it had to have a lasting legacy, and in quite a different way, I think, to what we were funded when we digitised the collections, which was a JISC-funded project again. So I feel that it's not achieved a great deal in terms of output. We've got something there that can be carried forward if we had more funding. We've also raised awareness within UCA potential. We've identified interested parties across with the university by setting up meetings to explain AR, and a lot of people didn't know what AR was until they came to that meeting. So I think it's a small but significant cultural change within the university, and we've identified an academic with whom we could work, and we've begun to develop content for students. One of the problems during the project, I think that is that our educational technologist who's actually leading on that side of it, for personal reasons, had to leave sooner. We might have achieved more otherwise, but I mean, that's part of the learning process. Next one, please. So it's just a matter of how many applications could be created. Well, we've just been working on the one. We started with one application with our lead academic, and then we changed course a bit. He felt that wasn't for him, and we lost a bit of ground and time in that. But again, it was part of the learning experience. So it's been a very steep learning curve, working with very new technology. And I think, as Rose mentioned, AR has very little, it has had very little experience of being applied to the higher education sector. I can see some of it in the museum sector, which is very successful. And I spoke to one national museum who has developed it, and it seemed that the technology had been outsourced to a commercial organisation. So I thought that was really interesting. So we're struggling here with technology, and actually the commercial sector who are leading on it. And we simply didn't have the IT infrastructure available at UCA, so we had to develop that as well. And in terms of scope, it was what we could achieve with the result. So our one application, small as it is, has been significant, I think. Next slide, please. So coming back to our target group, this has been specifically an internal one. It's been demoed, the one that Marie Therese has created has been demoed on undergraduates. We just started to do that with MA students, and given time, we would have liked to have taken that to the PhD level. So it's a question of how do we embed AR in the pedagogical process of UCA. That's an open-ended question, but I think we're getting there. We've sort of introduced the structures for it, and the CSC collections are still under-resourced, and AR could be applied to that as well in terms of exhibitions. An AR application could be used for one particular object within an exhibition. Okay, next one, please. So, and externally, again, the the way that the collections used extended that I showed earlier on in this presentation could be used in exactly the same way. I think we could extend an AR application to all those, to doctoral, postdoc, personal research and collecting, to special interest groups, to published outcomes, and all the other genres that have been introduced throughout the collection. Next one, please. So that sort of wrapped it up, really. Of what I've just said, how do we embed AR in the learning process of the UCA? Next one, please. It still remains local, the technology, and the implications for future funding, collaboration within UCA departments. We've led so far with our learning, our leader. We feel that that could be extended to other departments, perhaps the digitization department in UCA. And it's about finding the right match with technological skills. Okay, next one. So sort of coming back, it's very important to identify an academic to work with who could help us embed content within UCA collections with UCA learning and teaching. Important to identify academics who knew the collections and whose course could relate to our subject areas, which we've achieved. We've been aligning it with course objectives and aims through our academic lead. We had early discussions with them on how to develop content on his knowledge of the CSV collections, and we've been able to select relevant subjects that he could contextualize within his course and using the digital assets gathered from the Digital Arts Data Service. Next one, please. So we started off with the little gallery because we felt, Adrian felt that this was could act as a gallery in London that sold crafts between 1928 and 1940 that would act as a portal to the craft world. Next one, please. This based, we took some images from an exhibition, from our Mural Rose exhibition in 2008. Next one, please. And this is Mural Rose herself, who created the gallery. Next one, please. And the little gallery in the interwar period. Next one, please. And today, which is now 2 modern shops. This is in Ellis Street, just off Sloane Square. Next one, please. Next one. And this is a window in the shop in the interwar period when it was the little gallery, showing. Next one, please. And some of the images from the crafts that were sold. Next one. And the displays, which were completely new for the time, because they can text. Next one. Next one. And some of the collections, examples of collections that we have here. Printed textiles. So that's where we've got to. It's been piloted, but unfortunately, because for personal reasons, our educational technologists had to leave early, we didn't get quite as far as we wanted to, but we do feel that we can extend AR in our collections. As I said before, we could enrich the visitor's experience. It's a question, how can we make it work further? Okay, I think that's the last one.
Hi, the reason for choosing Genio, at the time there wasn't an image recognition AR browser available on the market apart from Genio, and a couple of people have asked about comparisons and technical appraisals between different AR technologies. Unfortunately, because the technology goes even faster than web-based technologies, there isn't a current one which is up to date. There are a couple of reports that have been done over the past few years. One, I think Judy in the chat window, she highlighted from the University of Bath, And there's also a JISC-informed document that has some really useful links on there relating to starting out in AR and things that you should consider.
And Matt, just leading on to that, a question that's just come up. Do you think we're limited by the AR browsers? Would we do better with something more focused on teaching and learning?
I think we're always limited with what hardware we've got available to us. I think it's just a case of finding whether there's benefits which are in excess of what we can deliver using normal teaching and learning mechanisms. If we can prove that there is an added benefit to the end user, i.e. the student, then it is a worthwhile exercise. It's when people start replicating exactly the same experiences on a medium which perhaps isn't the best solution.
Thanks, Matt. There's been some questions around equality as well, and I think one around disability. Matt, have you got anything to say about your experience of working with the students and the equality issues around owning devices?
With our business and humanities students that we tested our channels with, there needed to be some hardware available for them to, in certain seminar sessions, to be able to use the content with. There was an issue that came across strongly within our student focus groups about whether we were excluding some students without smartphones or tablet devices. And I think the only solution for that is to provide some devices prior to creating any of the AR content. So you have to plan that into the initial stage when you think about creating content. Is there going to be hardware available for the students to access it whenever they need to?
Thanks, Matt. There's some questions around student feedback as well. There are some bits on the blog about student feedback. Both of our projects have only been a year long, and maybe at that point I'd say just give us some more money and we'll do some more student feedback. So by the time we got to the end of the project, that's when the students have really been starting to use it. We will try and keep updating the blog with more feedback, but there is some stuff on there if you have a look at the blog about student feedback. Rose, have you got anything to say about student feedback, putting you on the spot here?
I had the most fantastic student feedback experience. I'm getting some feedback.
Close that. Yeah.
You can hear me now. Sorry about that. I had some terrible feedback in my first session. Students didn't get what was going on, didn't really care about it, thought we were trying to stop them using archives, really didn't go so well. I think the big lesson learnt from that, especially now that it's actually being used by the lecturers in their sessions, is you need to be very careful about who you approach and why. If you give someone some technology that's out of context in their learning experience, there's no point in them having that. It's not appreciated. It's not something that they need. It's not something that you want. So it's very hard to actually get feedback without disrupting someone's learning, because it needs to be in the genuine situation. So that's what we started doing now. It's in the lectures. It's being used by the students as part of their courses with Lucy, and also as part of the Observe in the 80s. Really hoping to get something back from that soon. Apparently it has been a lot more positive, which is nice, but early days. We'll get something on the blog as soon as we can with that one.
Thanks. And Jean, I wonder if you've got any answers to that as well. And also around what media works best for AR. Jean, do you want to say anything about that? Don't worry if you don't want to.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Marie Therese actually did the piloting on the students, and I wasn't there. She's obviously the better one to comment on that. The feedback I got was we were actually quite surprised how little technology the students had themselves. You know, they they didn't. We were expecting them to be well ahead of us in terms of technologies like iPhones, and they didn't. So that was quite a surprise for us.
Thanks, Jean. I just remember there is a good blog post around the and a good video actually about our academics in Scarlet talking about the differences where they found with undergraduate and postgraduate students. A few people are leaving now, and I know we've passed time, so there have been a couple of other questions around cost of viewing data and some technical questions as well. You'll see on my last slide there that we've got an AR discuss list, which I think most of you are on, so I really would ask that if there's any questions we've not managed to answer, sorry, someone's drawn over that for some reason, that you put it on that AR discuss list and we can chat about it then. So thank you very much for your time. Sorry, we've gone over slightly. And just to say as well that Mimas have shared their experiences now and got University of Sussex and Creative Arts starting to develop AR apps and experimenting and having these discussions. If you'd like to do some AR work with us as well, we'd love you to get in touch with us and we can talk about potential projects, or put them on the AR discuss list and we can sort of have a chat about what would work and what's the best way in the future to develop AR to enhance the student experience. Okay, thanks very much, everybody, especially to the presenters. Bye.